Hello.
Hello. I believe we're still waiting on Trustee Winslow, so we might wait a couple of more minutes before we call it to order.
Everybody staying warm today? No. Me neither. Laura, why am I not on video? Because I don't have my video, you know, blocked or anything.
I don't know. Do you have your laptop open?
Oh, that would be why. Hi, everybody.
That was a good one. I love it.
When I don't, I have everything set up on a little kitchen countertop thing. Laura, see, I'm such a technology giant, you know. When I'm not on Jabber or not on Zoom, I close my laptop because everything doesn't fit. And so my little keyboard sits on top of it. So I had my little keyboard propped up on top of it, and I can see all of you, but what would I do without you, Laura?
You would survive, I promise.
Somebody would help me, hopefully.
Laura, can you hear me now?
I can.
Hi, Jim.
How are you?
Good. Are those platinum records from your band on your wall?
Just the one from Kansas that they gave me from Leftoverture. It's my favorite, so
That's
I got
great.
me a platinum on that one. The rest of it's just all stuff they've given me autographed, and every time I go to one of the concerts and Phil gives me his sticks that he used to play, they give me the sound sheet, and I always have my backstage passes and everything, so I just throw them in a box.
Great.
Stick them on the wall. And I've run out of space.
Need a bigger wall.
Seriously, I have a 24 by 26 office downstairs, and every single wall is full of this stuff.
Mhm.
32 years of following bands and representing them. You collect a lot of stuff. Well, you talk about an industry that's hurting right now. Wow.
Awful. We can't get
It is.
out, get to the fans.
Let me know when you want me to start.
I still don't see Trustee Winslow, so I don't know how long we should wait. I haven't heard that she wasn't going to be here, so I'm not sure how you want to
Maybe
handle
having trouble getting hooked up.
possibly.
If I didn't have my board certified IT daughter in here, I'd probably be late.
Your IT doctor's going to be taking a test, so you better be self-sufficient today.
They're helpful, aren't they?
Yeah, gosh. That and my legal assistant, I can't get by with IT stuff without that.
Yeah, they're helpful. You bet.
Yes. It's not that I can't learn, it's an unwillingness to learn. We have enough to remember, right?
We're getting older. It's hard to teach.
I know.
New tricks.
So true. I was telling Laura that I got
Hey, Mark, I was calling to see
volunteered
if
by.
y'all were open for delivery or takeout.
What? What was that? Oh, I got volunteered to be on the Supreme Court task force to come up with all of the rules to reinstate our civil practice.
Good.
All the rules for, summoning jurors and starting the trials back up and all that. Yeah, that was real nice. I really need that on my plate. What do you,
Looking for something to
Justice
do.
Lucker calls me when I'm supposed to say, no, I don't get involved in that. Every time I turn around, I got something new I gotta do.
There you go.
A lot of interesting questions of how we're gonna fire the court system back up.
It's a big question. We've called on a regular basis to see, and they say maybe after the 15th, and then you can reschedule your hearings that we had scheduled for April and March. Yeah.
Sedgwick County, they're talking about June before you can even start to think about that. And then they're giving deference to all the criminal stuff first because of speedy.
120 day.
Yeah, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But they're talking, I've been working with the chief judge over in our district, and he's saying we're not going to have any civil trials till probably the beginning of next year. All of them are going to get pushed. We're just going to have criminal trials. And out of the 28 judges, they're assigning 9 of them just to hear criminal trials to try to catch up.
Wow.
So that's a mess over here.
Lots of backlog.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
a lot of.
Well, I'd like to go ahead and get started if that's the consensus of everyone.
I'm good with that. I just, don't want to get in trouble for cutting somebody out.
4:30 is 4:30.
4:30 is 4:30. That's what it's noticed up for. I'm going to go ahead and call to order the meeting of the Butler County College Board of Trustees for May 12th of 2020. First item we have is the approval of the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda other than we've noted that we will be going into executive session before we adjourn the meeting itself? Anybody else have any changes or modifications to the agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I so move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second,
Second.
going to do a roll call.
Yes, I will. So trustee Good? I just
Yes.
need a yay or yay. Trustee Law? I'll unmute you. I can't get you to unmute, Doug. Yes,
That could be a blessing. I vote yes.
thank you. Trustee Lechtenberg,
Yes.
trustee Rhodes,
Yes.
and trustee Smith.
Okay, there being no objection, the agenda as amended is approved. The next item on the agenda is recognitions. Kim?
Thanks. Yeah, we pushed off some of the April recognitions to May, hoping we would be face to face, but since we're not, we're going to go ahead and do these. We had a number of students in March that competed at Emporia State University in the state Phi Beta Lambda conference, and had a number of them qualify to compete at national conference in Salt Lake City in June, but unfortunately didn't, of course, get to go. Bailey Baker was first in statistical analysis. Brian Suma was first in cybersecurity, network concepts, programming concepts. Ian Kissel was first in contemporary sports issues and microeconomics, and third in computer applications. Jacob Mentor was first in accounting principles, computer concepts, sales, and second in sales presentation, and second in small business management plan. Javier Grimaldo was second in impromptu speaking. Kenyatta Nerianda was first in strategic analysis and decision making. Naomi Galindo was first in sales presentation. Rebecca Whitaker was second in information management and personal finance. The team of Brian Suma, Kenyatta Nerianda, and Javier Grimaldo was first in business sustainability. And the team of Kenyatta Nerianda and Javier Grimaldo was first in economic analysis and decision making. So we always have PBL students that compete really, really well at the state level and go on to nationals and come home with national honors. And so we're proud of them and disappointed along with them that they didn't get to go to nationals this year. The Kansas Association of Broadcasters Awards is another event that our students compete in. In March, this association announced the results of the 2020 KAB Student Award Competition. This competition is between all 2- and 4-year institutions across the state. 14 students from Butler received awards this year. In the 23 years that KAB has sponsored the student production competition, Butler's received nearly 100 first place awards, more than 70 second place awards, and more than 90 honorable mention, for a total of 265 awards. 2020 marks the 4th year in a row that Butler has received more honors than any other 2-year program in the state. And so we've got some great recognitions for these students as well. Austin Ashcraft was first in undergraduate radio, a complete broadcast or newscast, I'm sorry. Deanna Bond was first in undergraduate radio station promotional announcement, was first in public affairs program, first in DJ personality, first in research paper, second in promotional audio, second in news anchor, and second in documentary. We're going to hear some of these names, I think, on our newscasts as we head into the future, I bet. Adam Ferns was first in undergraduate radio, complete newscast. Anthony George was honorable mention in research paper. Wesley Hager was honorable mention in complete sports picture. Bruce Hirayama was honorable mention in complete sports picture and honorable mention in sports play-by-play. Adeline Hobbs was second in research paper. Jordan Plowman was honorable mention in research paper. And Madeline Rada was second in research paper. So proud of those students. They have a great, both of these student groups have great advisors that are very committed to students. Phi Theta Kappa National Awards, again, our PTK Scholastic Honorary Group, always, again, places well in their national competitions. And this year, their PTK Catalyst, again, was held for the first time in a virtual format. But our chapter came home with some great chapter awards as well as some of the individual awards. We were once again identified as a 5-star chapter. We were 4th in Chapter Officer Award, 2nd in Great Idea Award, 1st in Sister Chapter Award and Yearbook Award, and then we have some individual student awards. Emily Crow was 3rd in Great Idea Award. Our student, whose name I can never pronounce, and so I'm not even going to try, that graduated in December and is now in movie direction college in Chicago, placed 4th in Achievement in Literature Award in Research and 2nd in Achievement in Art Award for Photography. Kenyatta Nerianda was 2nd in Achievement in Literature Award for Research. Kathy Gifford was identified as a 5-star advisor, and Chrissy Baker 3rd as a distinguished chapter advisor. We want to recognize Kathy McCoskey, professor in English. Kathy was interviewed by the Center for Analysis of Post-Secondary Readiness blog page in November at their national conference. She was selected for the interview along with representatives from colleges nationwide. The Center for Analysis of Post-Secondary Readiness is a branch of the Community College Research Center at Columbia University in New York. We also want to recognize Rhonda Thomas, professor in business and accounting. She was chosen to be part of a panel and interviewed on KMUW. And the panel discussion was about financial stability during COVID-19. Jim Gross, a professor in art, who's an internationally recognized abstract painter, was featured in a recent Mark Arts email campaign, which used his work as an inspiration for a weekly challenge to create a 10-minute abstract work. He has collections across the country, including in the Museum of Modern Art and the Whitney Museum of American Art, among other places. And then we also want to recognize Donnie Featherston, Sarah Berry, and Lori Mosier. As we started to work remotely, are you guys getting a lot of feedback from me? Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not sure where it's coming from. As we started to work remotely during the regularly scheduled time for our institutional development days, which happened in April, we of course couldn't get together. And so Donnie Featherston, Sarah Berry, and Lori Mosier put together a virtual institutional development days in a short period of time and organized a number of different sessions. They did this on top of their regular jobs, but it really allowed everyone to come together for virtual trainings and time spent together. Some of the trainings were on handling stress and life in our new normal. And they named the event PJ IDD so that we all felt like we could come to IDD virtually. And if we had on, our comfy clothes for that morning, it was A-okay. So we had 300 participants on Zoom at one time. So it was pretty successful. It was pretty fun. And then last but not least, I think we forgot Doug's birthday last month, April 19th. And then Lance has a birthday coming up, I think next week on the 18th. So happy birthday to both of our trustees. Sorry we were late, Doug, on yours. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, next item on the agenda is public comment. I don't think we have anything noted or.
We didn't. I checked with Laura this afternoon and she didn't have anything, so.
Okay, so we move on with some standing reports, professional employees report. Is Terry with us? Probably not.
I do not see Dr. Sater in the list.
No Terry. And board finance committee report. There wasn't a meeting, was there today?
No.
There was not a meeting, although next month I'd like to somehow discuss some ideas I put forth in emails to everyone. So however we go about doing that, if you could send me an email and let me know what I need to submit so we could talk about some stuff next month.
Have you already
Kim?
sent that out, Shelby?
I sent out one thing and got a few responses just in general, but I'd like to have some discussions. So I didn't know how to get that put on the agenda for next month.
I haven't received anything from you.
No, I haven't sent anything out since last month.
Why don't we, after we have work session and the rest of the board meeting, we can, we may be able to provide some additional information today for you, Shelby, and we can kind of go from there.
Or just an email next week, anytime's fine too.
Anything else, Shelby?
Nope, thank you.
Okay. President's report, Kim?
Yeah, a couple of things. Our critical incident management team continues to meet on a transition back to campus, although we don't have that solidified yet. We have a few students that are coming to campus in really small groups to finish up some of their technical hands-on pieces, some of the welding students and EMT students, Lori and the deans and Jake Kinney and Jamie Sharp, who's our director of college health, worked really carefully on that plan to put that together to back on campus and get them finished up. We're paying really close attention to the governor's plan to reopen. And of course, her phased plan and the dates and the sizes of groups that can be together. So we're using all of that along with information that we've gotten from other resources to put our plan together. So, and right now we're planning on face-to-face classes in the fall unless something changes drastically. I think I told you last month that we are receiving money, CARES Act funds, part of the stimulus funds that are coming to higher ed. Half of it goes to student support and half to institutional. We're continuing to clarify the details for the use of that funding. We have the student piece well all put together. Some of the institutional funding is still, there's still a little bit of fluctuation in understanding about how those funds can be utilized, but we're working on those plans. Early on in this, we donated our, or loaned, I guess you would say, our ventilator. The National Guard came and picked up our ventilator so that it could be deployed and used in another location in Kansas where there was greater need. And we found out just last week that all of the ventilators that were donated by the community and technical colleges are all coming back to us, but they're first going to make a side trip to Minnesota to be cleaned and refurbished and updated so they come back to each of us in probably a little bit better shape than we sent them off. So that was a really nice surprise and message coming from the state. Just want to let you know that Lori Winningham's been selected to serve on a new Board of Regents task force that's going to be looking at developing more comprehensive associate to baccalaureate transfer pathways. One of the very first things that they're going to focus on is trying to develop a common general education package. So Lori will be a great addition to that task force. And then we're planning, we've got plans in the works for virtual commencement ceremony on the 29th of May. Nurses pinning is the night before on the 28th. And then there are plans in place to sort of celebrate with all of the early college academy graduates as well. So we'll make sure you get the links for the virtual commencement ceremony and the nurses pinning ceremony for sure. So I'd be happy to answer questions if you have them. Thank you.
Listen to division reports from humanities, social, behavioral sciences. I see there's a written report and materials are reviewed. Susan, going to add anything to that?
He's in the waiting room. I'm going to admit them right now, if that's okay with you.
Okay, sure.
Actually, Dr. Bradley is the dean, and then the associate deans are John Craig and Troy Norden. And all three of them.
Okay, is there anything Susan or any of the associate deans want to add to the monitoring report or anything else on that? Apparently not. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is board strategic discussion issues, opportunities. We have first on the agenda, the property insurance renewal update. It's either Kent or if Ryan's with us or both. We're going to tag team on that.
Is Ryan with us yet?
Just one.
You're muted, Laura.
Just 1 minute. I'm admitting him right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and turn it over to Ryan when he gets on. He has information. There he is. And Ryan, you're muted, but if you want to go ahead and I see him. There we go.
Kent, you cut out a little bit. You just want me to jump right into the document that I sent over?
Yeah, we just came to this agenda item, so the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, I sent over a premium comparison last night. This is using all of the current carriers that we have. Of course, we've got the Midwest Higher Education Compact on the property, and then Trident Public Risk on the majority of the casualty lines. The Trident renewal looks fine. We're still waiting on the MEC program, and I forwarded Kent an email today. It appears that Marsh is struggling to place the property as well. Yeah, there's the comparison. We did get news today that they're looking right now at a 5% wind hail deductible per building with $1 million minimum. So that would not be ideal if that's the only thing they come up with. They are working to find a buy down program that would be part of the MEC policy, but nonetheless, we've got 2 other companies working on this. Philadelphia Insurance Companies, which is a carrier that's not new to Kansas and not new to schools, but new to public higher education institutions. They have been writing private schools in Kansas for quite some time. So I visited with our underwriter today. He is, of course, getting bombarded by every agent that writes a junior college in Kansas because they found out that Philly is interested or in the market. He did tell me they're trying to put together a plan. If MEC ultimately releases a proposal that none of the colleges in the Jayhawk conference are going to take, they're trying to figure out if they have the capacity to take that on, and if so, at what rate. He did mention a rate of somewhere around 20 cents. And just to give you an idea, Butler's current rate is around 10 cents. So property, especially with a property schedule as large as Butler's, which is roughly 155 million in insured values between the El Dorado campus and the Andover campus, is a challenge in Kansas right now. So I think you're seeing that even with MEC and Marsh having trouble getting the carriers on board. So, unfortunately, the numbers you've got in front of you could completely change if we get a proposal from MEC that is just not feasible. We may end up moving all of the lines of coverage to Philadelphia. But that's unfortunately all the information I have today. Kent, is there anything else you want me to touch on?
I think that's, I think that's good. I don't know if the board has any questions after looking at this. We will be coming back to the board next month. We do have to approve the renewal next month in order to be timely with our July 1 dates on our policies. So just want to give you a heads up and let you know there's a few problems that we're still working through, but Ryan's
well, and MEC has even said they can't promise us when they're going to have the renewal, which is a little scary, but we're doing what we can. We've got everybody that's interested or that can write colleges in Kansas taking a look at it. It's just that the property is the challenging piece right now.
So I guess unless there's any questions or comments from the board, that would do it for us.
Just a quick one from me. The buy down prices seem pretty high, so I'm not sure I'd be interested in that, but that's only 2 cents I have to contribute.
I'm not sure what we don't have any buy down pricing yet for this year, so I'm not sure. You may be looking at last year's numbers.
Okay, yeah, there's something on page 18 at the bottom, so that's what I was looking at.
Yeah, I put in last year's numbers just as a reference. I'm sorry if it wasn't clear.
And yeah, the Board of Trustees did opt last year not to buy those buy downs. But of course, we were looking at a $300,000 deductible, whereas this year, if it's a minimum of $1 million, I think it would probably be a little more prudent to consider one. So again, until MEC releases firm numbers, I don't know if there's a whole lot to discuss, just because there's so many variables between now and when they give us a firm proposal.
Ryan, is this an issue that's affecting all the colleges that are underwritten by the company, or is this just us?
It's every college. The Philadelphia underwriter today told me he was talking to IMA about all their colleges. And then, of course, the other agencies that I'm familiar with that are in they have the consortium with, let me back up. There's several smaller colleges, or I shouldn't say smaller, just with smaller property values, like Cowley and Seward and a few of the others that weren't large enough to get their own policy within MEC. So they all joined together, and they basically, there's 4 or 5 colleges that share a MEC policy. So of course, I'm talking to all of those agents as well. And we're all in the same boat. There's just, there are no property carriers that we can find a bargain on for this type of risk in Kansas, just with the concentrations and the amount of roof line and flat roofs. I mean, the Butler has seen firsthand what a hailstorm can do. I mean, we had a $7 million claim. When you're charging $140,000 for property insurance, it's real hard to justify that risk for a $7 million pop when we know it hails in Kansas on a pretty regular basis. So, no, you're not alone. I think every agent in Kansas is in the same situation, and every junior college, junior college, I should say. So.
Any other questions for Ryan? Thanks for all your help, Ryan, as always. Kent, anything else you want to add?
I think that wraps it up for this item. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. See you guys next month.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan. We'll move on to the next agenda item, health insurance renewal. Is Shelley with us, or who's going to give us a talk about
Yes,
that?
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello.
Shelley.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to present some information to you regarding our health insurance renewal. And we are in our renewal period, and our broker IMA came out last month and met with our insurance committee to kind of go over our renewal rates, plan options, things like that. And I invited them here today to give you an overview of kind of where we've been, what we see for renewals for this year, and a little bit about planning for future. And just this is just an open discussion, but not asking for any action today. Our guests with us today are IMA Vanessa Keith, and she is our account executive. And is Jessica joining us, or sorry, is Christy joining us too?
Christy's actually sick today, so Ryan joined in her absence. Okay,
so Ryan is a suitable stand-in as Christy's partner in crime, both at IMA and also in life. So Ryan is a vice president with IMA as well. And I'm going to turn it over to them. We have a presentation that was for you in the board book. I believe we're also going to put it up on the screen. So Vanessa, as she goes through her presentation.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
That PDF presentation that Shelley referenced from the board packet will be what I'm reviewing. I'm not sure, Shelley, who's controlling the screen today?
I think that's Laura.
Okay, perfect. So Laura, if you want to pull that up, we'll start going through. Shelley has let me know that 15 minutes is optimal. I talk fast, so I think I can do it all in 15, but if I start going too fast, please pause me and ask any questions that you feel comfortable asking. Again, thank you for having us today. What we're reviewing today is something a little different. We have the fully insured renewal, which is your renewal with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I will go through that in small detail just to have you feel comfortable and confident with what your offer is currently with the renewal. And then we also have a self-funded quote, which is technically partially self-funded with Blue Cross Blue Shield and an ASO, Administrative Services Only arrangement. It has come in competitive. And so due to your size, due to the fact that it's a strategy that we have been talking about for the last couple of years, we wanted to take some time and give the board an update on what that looks like. And then ultimately, if the decision's made this year that it's not the right time, I know we're in a pandemic state and their change is hard. So if this is not the right year, we're totally on board with that. We just wanted to ensure you had a full understanding of what our offers were this year and then what potentially might be coming down from a strategy perspective next year. So Laura, if you would skip for me to page 4. I'm gonna jump ahead to page 4. Oh, sorry, 5 on the PDF. There we go. So on your fully insured renewal, there's a couple aspects that are driving your costs. One back, if you don't mind. Thank you. On a fully insured basis, which is what you are with Blue Cross right now, which means that you pay Blue Cross premiums on a set basis all year. At the end of the year, they look at how much of those dollars were attributed to claims payments, and then what that will look like for your next year in regard to the risk of the overall population and health of the population. They then provide you with a renewal number, which is a renewal increase or decrease. One of the main pieces they look at is premiums versus claims, which is what we're looking at here. What we're looking at is the full 12 months that Blue Cross is using to underwrite your renewal, premiums in versus claims paid out. You'll see a blue arrow in the far right-hand corner at a 92%. So where Butler Community College landed was a 92% what you call a loss ratio. So 92% of premiums in paid for claims out. Sounds great, understand it's not over 100, but average carrier wants to have that at a 7, it feels more comfortable to have that at a 70 to 75% loss ratio because of additional cost factors that they have to tack on top of that, like administrative expense as well as trend. Medical prescription drug trend with Blue Cross right now is about 8% year over year. So just inflation factor year over year is an 8%. So if you go to the next page, Laura, another cost impact that we have on your fully insured renewal this year is high cost claimants. If you start at the very bottom, you see 5 members had over $100,000 in paid claims. Only one of them has terminated. We did market the plan to the carriers that have network access for your employees, UHC and Aetna, both declined to quote, primarily due to the high cost claim risk that you're taking on. As we look at the self-funded numbers, what we're looking at is how do we control this high cost risk in a different mechanism to help it not attribute the entirety of the risk to the premium? How do we put it in a different spot to continue to have a per employee per month that maintains at a lower trend level than market? And that's where you get into the self-funded conversation. So next slide. Keep going. One more for me. One more slide. Oh, keep going. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So on slide 9, what you'll see is the Blue Cross Blue Shield renewal. Now, good news is for the 2019 numbers, we did negotiate a 10% rate cap. What that means is they cannot charge you, regardless of where the formula comes in, Blue Cross Blue Shield cannot charge you more than 10%. What that allowed us to do is to have a budget, a hardline budget for the renewal this year. That rate cap was non-renewed this year, so we won't have the rate cap for the 2021 renewal, partially because of the first renewal that they created with the formula, they being Blue Cross Blue Shield. What they actually wanted to call for your risk this year was a 19.7% increase when you include the dental claims. And so it actually was 21.5% increase if you remove the dental liability, but your dental and your medical is put together in your contribution methodology for your members. So we added the dental. Because of that rate cap we put in place last year of 10%, we are at that green box regardless of what the formula came out to. So because of that rate cap, we were able to shave off 573,000 of the fully insured numbers just because we were able to negotiate that rate cap at last year's renewal for this year's renewal. I know that's a lot of information. I just wanted to give you guys a baseline on the fully insured side. Any questions, or Shelley, is there anything you'd like to share?
So I guess I would just point out that in the box where it says the revised renewal, the increase is that 483,000, correct? Vanessa?
Yep.
So that's our increase going into our new plan year, which starts October 1.
And that's inclusive of a dental renewal that was actually a slight decrease, 4.5% decrease. And that includes plan improvements on the dental contract, which is why you see it at 9% instead of a 10% increase, because it was supplemented a little bit with that savings from the dental.
Shelley, Vanessa, this is Forrest.
Of course.
So when we're going through this process next year, is Blue Cross going to evaluate next year based on what actually happens next year? Or is the carryover that they didn't get to impose this year going to be built into that equation next year?
That's a great question. So you never know how a carrier is going to react. Blue Cross Blue Shield has a very standard underwriting methodology. And the good news is on the fully insured side, they use a set 12-month space. So it's what you call an experience period. And on those few slides back when I was looking at the premiums versus claims, that loss ratio report, that is the experience period that they underwrite the renewal on. The way that Blue Cross underwrites, most carriers will use a 24-month experience period. Blue Cross uses a set 12 months. So in theory, the answer to your question, Forrest, is no. They shouldn't be trying to get you back to where they wanted you to be this year. However, if the claims risk that you have maintains itself, I'm pretty confident in saying that we're going to be looking at something similar next year as we are this year without a rate cap, if the risk maintains itself. And there is some set risk that we know will happen because of active members that are on treatments that will continue to maintain.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Shelby Smith. So pretty much next year, since there's no cap, they're looking at about a $1 million increase in premiums, probably a little more than that.
Potentially. I mean, if the utilization levels out and we improve, it could be closer to 5 to 10%. We can't tell that yet, but yes, and that's the concern that we have right now, is that if the utilization, the way it's running right now and the way that Blue Cross's formula is projecting, if it maintains itself for another year, we may be in this position with a larger investment to self-funding as opposed to doing that this year, which is why we're here, because there is a potential savings in comparison to where you are on your fully insured premium in that self-funded space if you run in a strong fashion.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious how this is sustainable, this increase every year.
Yeah, and that's the concern. And that's why we wanted to get in front of the board and start talking about self-funding, even if that's not something we do this year, because the large claims risk that's driving these renewals year over year is something we may be able to control through what you call stop loss. And I'll get to that in a minute from a self-funded perspective in a stronger way. So it's not affecting the entirety of your cost. It's affecting a smaller portion of your cost. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to, Laura, jump to, Shelley, would you like me to go through the contributions or would you like me to jump to self-funding? Oh, you're muted, I think.
I would like for you to go through contributions.
Okay, perfect. So next page, please. Within healthcare reform, there's still what you call the employer shared responsibility, or pay or play. That's what it's commonly called in the Affordable Care Act. We always, every year, make sure that you're falling within the measures that you're required as an employer to circumvent any penalties associated with the Affordable Care Act. Right now, your lowest cost option, which meets all the requirements for offering, is being offered to your employees at $0 for employee only, meaning you are well in the lines of contribution requirements. What that 101.79 represents is how much you could raise that contribution and still be within bounds. That's not what we're recommending. Just that's how much room you have to work with the contributions as you're working through negotiations. Next slide, please. So when we're looking at this slide, I don't want to misstep. These are still in negotiation, Shelley, and I don't know if you want to intro this a little bit.
Right, so these are just our current state where we're at today based on last year's premiums and non-renewed rates as far as what the college is contributing. So as you look at this, keep in mind that that is all something that hasn't been decided yet on the college contribution and what those rates will actually look like for the college.
Mm-hmm. So what's represented here is Butler's contribution methodology staying exactly the same as it is currently. And then any change in rates, which is that 9% increase, passed on fully to the employee just as a purely consultative approach to see where you need to be long term. Questions there?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, I see this page where you have the minimum amount is 0
mm-hmm.
for a single person policy.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you can show me that says the maximum amount of payment that we make per month per individual all the way to family?
Per plan?
I guess. Yeah, I would like to see a comparison. I see the one that says there are some employees that pay 0.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see the maximum.
Got it. So
for both a single employee
the
and
maximum
family.
amount that you could charge the employees and remain compliant.
Yes, for a family versus, I guess, single individual.
From a family perspective, there's not any requirements to maintain a level of affordability. That's more tied to negotiations within the structure of Butler Community College. Shelley, would you like to hit on that a little bit from a history perspective?
I guess I'm not, these are the monthly amounts, I guess, Butler pays towards the insurance premium. And based on the plan is where the employees are seated in there. So if you look at over on the far left-hand side, it shows you how many employees are in each process, whether it's employee or employee plus one or family for each one of the plans. But I'm not sure, Julie, are you asking what's the minimum amount that we are required by law to have available? Julie, you're muted. I'm sorry, Julie, you're still muted.
Okay, there. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I was asking for the maximum amount that any employee paid per month. I've got the minimum amount is 0, so I was kind of getting a range and asking for the maximum amount that an employee could pay per month.
So the maximum amount is
on this page.
So the total premium that is under each option, employee for each one of those, we have 3 different plans. And so the maximum premium currently for a single is $624. That's the maximum premium. Currently, the college pays $574 of that premium.
I just want to make sure that I read that right.
And just to answer the other question, on a family, there's not a regulatory
You
reason
tell me.
you would have a cap.
Did that answer your question, Julie?
Wait, I have a question. Okay, you're telling me that of the 620, no, you're telling me as out of the 624 maximum, 500 some odd dollars per month is paid by the college?
Correct.
Currently, yes. And then
Yeah.
the red arrows are, that's the 20
done with these meetings
from Blue Cross.
Okay.
And it's by the 3 tiers that you offer, which is employee only, employee plus one, and family.
Right.
Okay.
That's very generous. Yes. Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
You got it. Okay. Any other questions? There's still more to come on this. I think it's the summary of that conversation on that, because I know that Shelley has some negotiation committee items that she needs to still work on the contributions. Okay. So what I want to go into now, if there's no other questions, is the opportunity which has presented itself in the self-funding arrangement with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And the reason that we have presented the Blue Cross Blue Shield option is because it has the least amount of employee impact when you're talking about the employee experience. You can maintain the plans you're offering currently. You maintain the network, the customer service is the same. The only thing that changes is on the employer side, how you're actually functionally paying for the insurance for your employees. Instead of premiums, that function from a financial perspective will change. So employee experience can maintain itself for at least a year or two in that arrangement without having to impact those membership experiences from a benefit perspective, which is why we've shown the Blue Cross option as the option this year. If you'll go to the next page, please. I'm not sure the level of expertise in regard to partially self-funded plans or administrative service only plans on the call. So I just want to take a couple minutes to do a brief overview about self-funding. Right now on this slide, all I want to include is for groups of your size, it's very common to be checking into the self-funding arrangement to see if it's the right arrangement for you. When you get to a group of your size, at some point your premium scales tip. You're paying a little more than you're supposed to, the premium, and you need to go into that self-funded arrangement. Shelby, I think you raised your hand.
Yeah, I just had a question going back to that last page. It says that's a monthly contribution. Is that based on 12 months? Because are these teachers teaching 12 months a year? Or is that just a monthly breakdown averaged over a year?
It's the monthly premium. So,
even though they may not be teaching in the summer at all?
They're paid over a 12-month. Their 9-month contract is paid over 12 months.
Okay. All right. That's my only question.
Yep. So if we can go to the next page, Laura. So to give you a high level, fully insured versus self-funded, you guys right now are the green bar. The self-funded arrangement is the bar with the multiple colors. Claims are the claims. You can't control them. Members have claims. In a fully insured arrangement in that green bar, you have your claims. Then the carrier will, in this case, Blue Cross, will tack on administrative expenses to administer your plan and provide customer service. They will typically include some sort of reserve in margin factor in case to help supplement a anomalous year like what you're having right now, or a heavy claims year like what you're having right now, so that they don't have to hand out 40 or 50% increases. All of those items in that green bar, up to the line above the profit, is taxed on the state level through state premium tax, and then there is also a health insurer tax, which is part of the Affordable Care Act, which is 3.5%. So that's the entirety of the rate is going to be taxed on those two levels. That's where you are right now. That piece of the piece of the green bar that shifts in cost is going to be the reserve and the profit, and then the admin expenses typically stays the same. So it's really the claims that are driving your cost increase year over year in the fully insured arrangement as well. Where the self-funded arrangement changes that is your claims are your claims, right? So in your self-funded arrangement, You're partially self-funded, first of all, because we'll layer stop loss, which is a premium product, a fully insured product to protect your risk. So the claims will come in, and this is where it's very different. Right now you pay a monthly admin expense bill and that's it for your premiums. The claims will come in weekly, and up to a hard stop level in each individual, Butler Community College will pay that claim liability on a weekly basis. The plan, being Blue Cross Blue Shield right now, would become your administrator. And so the administrative expenses would reduce, and that would be a monthly expense that you would take on as fixed. That one is fixed. And then stop loss is what you layer on top of the claims. There are 2 levels of stop loss. It's a fixed cost as well that you get billed monthly. And what that stop loss insurance does is it puts set limits for your liability as the plan in Butler Community College on how much you do pay. Anything above a certain line, the stop loss will take on as liability. There's also small premium tax associated with stop loss just because it is a premium product, but it's very much, it's a very, very small amount in comparison to what it is on the premium side. Where you see that red line, dotted line, this is where it changes. On the fully insured side, Blue Cross Blue Shield typically will hold on to reserve on your behalf. When you're self-funded, you will build out a budget in conjunction with a couple factors. So claim factors that are provided by the stop loss carrier, which in this case will be Blue Cross Blue Shield, as well as budget numbers that we help you set. And at the end of the year, if you haven't spent those dollars on claims or admin or stop loss, it's your money. So this is where you start to get the control in a stop loss in a self-funded arrangement. On top of that, then is that purple bar, which is RX rebates, which is just, I always say it's just gravy on top because it is something that will change based on utilization. Pharmaceutical companies, manufacturers will supply what they call rebate dollars to a pharmacy benefit manager, which would be who administers your pharmacy claims, which is Prime Therapeutics right now, to ensure that their medications maintain on the formulary so they are covered for the plan. In the fully insured arrangement, those RX rebates go back to Blue Cross Blue Shield because they're paying the claims. In this arrangement, they would start flowing through at 80% to Butler Community College because you're paying the claims. That is estimated, just to give you a quick math based on the current utilization, it's estimated at $44.81 per employee per month, which is around $200,000 annually of RX rebates based on the utilization of medications right now. So that number is not something to hang your hat on. It's based on current utilization. Someone could jump off your plan that's taking a medication. Someone could come on your plan that's taking a medication that shifts those dollars. They're also in a lag, an 8-month lag from the date of service. So it's not something that we include in our budget. It's just additional funds that would flow to your reserve. So this red line is where you're really seeing the difference. Blue Cross Blue Shield in any carrier is going to decide where the reserves need to be, where the claims costs are going to be, and where their liability needs to land within the premiums. In a self-funded space, we're going to do all that still. We're going to set your premium equivalents, meaning your 3-tier rates, based on a budget that is based on your claims experience. But if you don't pay out of that bucket, that's where you hold on to the money and the cash flow becomes yours. Any questions about that basic concept of self-funding?
I have a question, Vanessa. Are there any community colleges in Kansas that are on the self-funded plan now?
Yes. So we manage 2.
Out of 19. Are there any others?
Self-funded right now on our book. We manage more. We have more community college clients. We have 2 that are self-funded on our book. The others are actively looking to move self-funded just like you guys are. So it is an arrangement where everyone is actively reviewing it. I have one community college this year that the scales tip. At some point, your premiums are going to be so high that it doesn't make sense to be fully insured any longer. You want to go self-funded. And for that client, it did. They were able to get a 6% overall savings to go self-funded and budget to the maximum liability and still get 6% savings from the current. And then we have a long-term client, and I did a review to check to see how they were doing. And hold, please. That long-term client is another community college that has been self-funded for ages. And from 2016 to 2019 is the renewal. Their average trend being the year-over-year inflation factor between the years for per employee per month is 2.07 from 2016. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to curb that trend line in yourself. And what you're doing with those high cost claims is you're shifting that high cost claim risk into the smaller portion of a fixed cost. And that's where that number is going to be attributed, as opposed to it hitting the entirety of your fully insured rate.
So Shelley, how many of our employees are under our insurance plan now?
We have about 393 employees that are currently covered under our plan.
What percent of the employment population is that?
Well, as far as percentage of those eligible, it's probably about 80%.
Okay.
8 to
Thank you.
80%. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You have a strong participation on your employee base.
That's great.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions? I know I've covered a lot. This is a big topic to try to cover in 15, but I want to make sure everybody's on the same page. Okay. There are values on the next slide that I want to hit on really quickly, but I do know I have a time limit. The advantages to self-funding are that cash flow advantage. So the cash flow becomes your cash flow. That's a positive because any reserve that you bank for the year is your reserve. However, it's also negative. If you don't build a reserve and you don't budget appropriately, which is the risk you take on, then that cash flow becomes cash flow that may have to come from a different source within Butler Community College. As a public entity, I know that's not something that you guys take lightly. So that's a pro and a con. Cost savings is that trend line that I mentioned. You're curbing that trend line by controlling costs in a different way through stop loss and taking on the claims liability and the variability of the claims liability. As you progress through the spectrum of self-funding, you get more plan control and plan flexibility. And in the end, as long as you budget appropriately, which that's what we're here to help you do, there's stability in your renewals. And that's what you're trying to present. You're trying to stop these 15-20% increases because you have a few people that have health conditions that are driving most of the cost. Okay, next slide. I mentioned the stop loss. This is what's layered on top of your claims. There is a stop loss limit and that's what you call individual stop loss or specific stop loss, ISL or spec. You'll hear a lot of words that we use. Right now, the quote that we've seen is a $50,000 specific stop loss level. So the quote that we're going to show is every individual on the plan, so employee, spouse, or dependent, BCC would pick up to $50,000 of their claims, and then stop loss would protect you for the remainder of the year. So that's how stop loss would work on the individual level. And then you have what you call an aggregate stop loss limit, which is the umbrella. So it is on top of all claims that are paid for the plan year. If you have a catastrophic year, that's how much you would pay, and then insurance covers the rest. So that's your catastrophic insurance. And then the next slide is going to go through the summary of the cost. Okay, Laura, is there a way to zoom in on this slide? Sorry, it's just a lot of numbers. Okay, and then pull it to the right for me a little bit, or pull it over so I can see the right screen a little bit. There we go. Okay, hold on. I am going to, okay, perfect. So when we're looking at your renewal, what's represented on this page is your fully insured renewal, which is this section right here. And what you'll see is the rates are right here because they're fixed costs, versus the Blue Cross numbers, which are going to be broken into multiple pieces. So remember I talked about the administrative expense, which this is the fixed cost per employee per month for admin, which is your administrative expense, and you'll be billed that monthly. And then stop loss premium, because remember that's a fully insured product. This is the composite of both individual stop loss and aggregate stop loss or maximum stop loss here. So your fixed cost, which is the only set cost that you'll take on from a liability perspective in a self-funded arrangement, is totaling right here. That's your fixed. And then you have two claim factors. So what a carrier, stop loss carrier will do is they will create, based on your utilization, factors that attribute your claims at 100% line. So where they expect you to run at 100%, and then a number that will get you to that cap, which is that maximum aggregate level, which would be your maximum liability. And that's at 125% of expected. So it's your 100% line plus 25% above that. So the green box represents your fixed cost plus expected claims. So this is where they expect you to land, they being Blue Cross Blue Shield as a stop loss carrier. As you see, there's a disparity between your renewal of 9% and the Blue Cross ASO number, which is at a 1% estimated increase over current. That is because Blue Cross uses a 3-year underwriting methodology on self-funded business instead of a 1-year methodology that they use on the fully insured. So they are pushing your utilization across multiple periods instead of using a smaller portion to attribute cost. They also are going to be able to stop those high cost claimants at $50,000 and attribute that risk to the stop loss premium instead of the overall cost. They're going to account for that $50,000 expected there, but that's going to be the limit of those high cost claimants. And if you remember, you had 5 members with over $100,000 in paid claims. So when I talk about risk shifting, that's what I mean. You're shifting that risk into this stop loss pool and premium here, the smaller portion, then shifting everybody and affecting everyone. And that's really the moral of the story today. Even if you don't go self-funded this year, we really need to start considering what shifting that risk into a stop loss and taking on the claims liability looks like versus having that drive your premiums every year. The red box at the bottom represents the maximum liability. So 125% of expected claims plus fixed cost. That is actually above your renewal, which you would expect it to be, by 7.6%. Where you budgeted is between these two numbers. So the 10% budget that you created for medical and dental, which dental is included in this, the budget that you created for that is a 10% increase. That 10% increase, this number, lands between this number and this number. Remember, oh, I'm pointing, I am so sorry. Then I'm so used to controlling the presentation. The number in the red box versus the number in the green box. So when you're looking at the liability you're taking on, you're not taking on the entirety of this change. You're taking on what you have budgeted and above. When you're talking about where you're budgeted right now at 113% of expected. So 113% of the number in the green box is where you're budgeted right now. So right now your budget lands you between these two numbers. Does that all make sense? I got a thumbs up from Shelby. Any other questions there? Okay, so then we get into the conversation of liability and budgeting. So I want to jump to page 19, please. In the PDF, it might be page 20, Laura. Can you go one back for me, please? There you go. Thank you so much. So this is where you're budgeted at for self-funding. If you were to go with your budget, you would be budgeted to 113% of expected. So you would be budgeting between that expected cost and that maximum liability. What you want to ensure you do is you consider being conservative first year, because first year you're trying to build up a reserve. And so you want to budget in a very conservative fashion, especially when you're a public entity that doesn't have the cash flow to pull from a general assets if you have liability. Most clients that are self-funded land between 5% under expected to 5 to 10% over expected. That's most clients. I've had clients that landed closer to max first year because they had an anomalous claim year, so the risk was higher. So when we look at these contribution pages, there's 3 different sets. One of them is expected. One of them is the one we're looking at currently, which is at your 10% budget, and one of them is at your maximum liability. which would be the most conservative budget you could have. I say all of this because I would encourage Butler Community College to continue the conversation about what that liability looks like. And from a cash flow perspective, where you feel comfortable and confident from an overall budget to help you build that reserve and build a surplus to ensure you can maintain a self-funded arrangement. This isn't something you step into and step out of, because you will continue to have to pay any claims that were incurred in the time of your contract. Okay, Shelley, any additional thoughts there?
I have a question.
Okay.
This is Julie Winslow.
Yeah.
How do we compare to other community colleges at this point? You know, insurance, both benefits, how much we pay. And I'd like to eventually see some kind of an analysis between those who have already.
I think I might have lost you, Julie.
Gone self-pay, and those that haven't, so that I know exactly where. I show that I'm not muted. Did you lose me because you didn't understand my question, or?
No, sorry, you were fading in and out.
Can anybody else hear me? Well, this is.
Your connection's kind of coming in and out, Julie.
The best I can do, and
that's okay.
Yeah, I can't help that. There's nothing I can do. We need to get back to meetings. But anyway, my question is, how do we compare to other colleges that are our size, other community colleges in the state of?
I'm tracking with you, Julie. How do you compare from a cost and benefit
Kansas, our size, and how do we compare as far as what?
So I think I'll go ahead and take just a quick stab at answering that if I could, Julie.
Cost and benefits, what we pay versus what they pay.
Yeah, Julie, we've done some research on this in the past. And so I will put some information together.
Trying to get up close here.
Sorry? So Julie, I was saying that we have done some research on how our benefits and so forth compare to other community colleges. We participate in some surveys and various things like that that give us that information for comparative purposes. So I will get some of that information together for you and let you see that. As far as how our rates and so forth compare to other community colleges, as far as what they are paying for their medical, I don't think that we have that detailed information. We have what they might be paying for the premiums to offset employee premiums and things like that. So I can get you some of that information separately.
Yeah, right now we have 7 of the state community colleges that we represent. So 5, 6 or 7. So I mean, we have almost half of the community colleges in the state. So we can provide benchmarking there, Shelley, to help answer and supplement that question. Absolutely. And I know you have other pieces to the meeting. I don't
kind of need to wrap it up.
But
if we could.
if you have any other questions that come up or you think of, please let me know, or if there's any other questions before I head out.
Just, can we get those maybe by next meeting?
Yeah, that shouldn't be an issue.
Thank you.
So for today, we really just wanted to provide you with kind of an overview. It's a lot of information to take in, but I think, you know, the message I would send away is that, you know, we've been pretty lucky with our premiums in the last 2 years. We have been flat. We have not had any increases in our premiums, thanks to the good work that we've had with IMA. And this year is the first increase we've had in premiums, like I said, in the 2 years. So we are looking at that, and we did budget knowing that we would potentially have a 10% increase because that was the cap we had. So we were budgeted that way as well. So just wanted to kind of give you an overview of what we talk about when we're looking at renewals, some of the options that might be on the table coming forward. We will renew our insurance one way or the other this year. So we'll be working on how that looks from a premium perspective to the college and also to the employees as we progress through our negotiations with the Professional Employees Association. So more to come on that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vanessa.
Bye.
Appreciate your time and the information.
Yep. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Shelby. I just had one quick question. I think I'm breaking up here.
I can hear you.
Okay. Hey, are we required by law to provide this level of insurance, or is this just part of the benefits for our teachers? 'Cause
Well,
at some point, if it continues down this road, we need to get out of the insurance business, and could we provide just a stipend to the teachers and let them get their own policies?
well, we are required by the Healthcare Act, the Affordable Health Care Act that was put into place during the Obama administration to provide health insurance at a minimum threshold of affordability. And that particular affordability threshold right now is the maximum that somebody should have to pay under the federal guidelines is $100 or $101 and some odd cents. So it's all based on poverty level. And so we could not charge somebody more than that amount for a single coverage, that to make our plan affordable under that act. So the level at which we contribute is a great deal higher than that, meaning that we provide a much more generous coverage. And that has kind of been the culture of the college for many years. And that, when it's negotiated the amount that the college is going to contribute, it's considered a part of compensation as a part of the negotiations. And so it is something that is negotiated every year. And thankfully, we haven't had any.
I have a question.
So let me just kind of finish this one thought real quick. So what I would say is that during that negotiation process is when we talk about the college contribution towards that insurance premium. And then it's brought before the board as a part of our negotiated items for your ratification.
Okay, my only question would be at this point is, when you negotiate, is there any members from the board present, or is it all college and insurance company? Or explain to me the background of a committee.
So the negotiating committee is made up of 6 representatives from the Professional Employees Association, including the president of the association, which is Terry Sater, Dr. Sater. And he and his team identify the other 5 people that will be on that negotiating team. And then there are 6 representatives from the administrative side, which includes a representation, of course, Dr. Kroll speaks on behalf, and we speak on behalf of the board and those type of administrative issues. We have somebody for the vice president from academics is there, Lori Winningham, vice president of student service. Traditionally, we have a dean, myself, and the vice president of finance. And I'm missing somebody, aren't I, Kim?
Well, Meredith is there. Meredith is there to take notes.
And then we also, okay. So that is the negotiating team. It is called a mutual gains bargaining situation or environment. And so there are, the team negotiates with a facilitator, or kind of not necessarily a mediator, more of a facilitator from a Kansas-based organization that does that. And so we work together on those items. When we go into negotiations, and this was presented to you, I believe in March, you'll get the notice up letter, which is all of the items that we're negotiating. And so this year, I think we had 16 different items that were being negotiated for this contract coming up that we were putting in there. We are mandatorily required to always negotiate on compensation items. That is by state law, or sorry, by federal law or state law. Yeah, the KNEA. And the rules governing the NLRB, which is the National Labor Relations Board. Does that help, Julie?
So
Sorry, you cut out.
all of the committee members on the negotiating committee, or whatever you want to call it. So you're telling me that all of them are either from the college or appointed by the college, with the exception of the facilitator, who may or may not be hired as a facilitator from outside the college.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, correct.
If anybody heard that, would they repeat that question to us? Okay. It just doesn't seem quite, there's something wrong with that, but okay, I get it. I just wanted to know, and you gave me the answer.
This is Forrest. Julie, what about that is odd to you? Because in collective bargaining, most often in my experience, the bargaining table is entirely composed of employees on one side and management on the other, potentially with legal counsel. So I mean, who do you think should be part of that isn't?
I'm sorry, are they all members of the negotiating group? Anybody that is on the committee, all members of the negotiating group itself?
You have employees that are represented by a union, and there's typically union representation, and you have employees that are part of the bargaining committee that are also on the group. And then you have management side that represents the employer. It's not at all uncommon. It's not different from what we're doing here, except you have the mediator. I call mediator the facilitator, which is unique to me.
Yeah, well, I understand that it sounded like a personal question, but it really wasn't. Well,
no, I'm just
I was
curious.
involved in negotiation in past companies for labor. There was a company side and there was a labor side. That was it. I'm sorry.
And
No, that's
basically
what we have here. I'm sorry,
This
Shelley,
was
go ahead.
hopefully the last meeting. Hopefully this is the last meeting that we have by Zoom, because this really stinks.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to jump in there for a minute. I appreciate your questions, Julie. You'll get. I think we'll probably have work sessions on this. We're going to be jumping more into that whole process and what's being negotiated and what's happening. But that's sort of running astray right now. Of just
I've got one tiny comment, and then I'll be done.
And our discussions right now have just been basically discussing. Here's some options, and Shelley reviewed the options for health insurance renewal that we've got coming up. And I think that they've done a pretty good job of giving us a quick overview.
Shelby,
I'm sure we're going to spend a lot more time on that. But if you've got a question along these lines, Shelby, please go ahead.
I got a 10-second question.
Sure.
I think the thing as Dr. Kroll speaks for us as the board, and we're managing, we're the board of trustees, we manage hiring and firing and all that. We need to have input in what Dr. Kroll represents as us, the board members, to these negotiations, because we're getting a huge amount of increase in benefits just through insurance premiums. And as Jim said before, that needs to be reflected in what wage increases they want as well. Because I mean, 60% of our budget's just payroll, 65%. It's getting very top heavy. So that's,
yeah, it's quite a benefit that's being provided as part of that package. And unfortunately, we're going to have to even take a closer and closer look at that as we move along, because it's a big part of it. And, you know, it's just an affordability issue because it keeps going up and up and up. But I don't want to go down that road right now. We'll talk about that in work sessions and executive sessions. But I just wanted to see if there's any other questions about the renewal options that have just been generally discussed, so we can move on with the meeting. Does anybody have any specific questions about that? Okay, well, thank you so much.
Just what I already asked for, and she's going to provide it at the next meeting, some comparisons to other colleges in both the.
Yeah, and I think that would be extremely helpful. I'm looking forward to that information as well. Anyway, let's go ahead and move
self-insured arena and the non-self. Thank you.
I agree with you, Julie. This is not an ideal situation with this Zoom. You're just breaking in and out. But anyway, I think we've covered what we need to cover and then some. So let's go ahead and move forward with the board action items. And the first one that's coming up is the auto collision program. And who's talking about that? Lori? Winningham?
I can speak.
Okay.
Just,
Go ahead.
you had asked, we brought information forward to you last month with some information after we'd had our meeting with the advisory committee, and continued to recommend from the administrative side that we discontinue auto collision. There was consensus, I believe last month, that you wanted this on the board agenda as an action item. So we're bringing it forward as an action item this month for you to vote on. Yeah. So it's just the next step in it.
Right. I think we've had a pretty good discussion about it, and I wanted it brought before the board because I think that if you read the statute, any programs are within the responsibility.
So
Out that
there, Jim Freeze.
None?
I can only hear every other word of Jim. I had one quick question I didn't understand.
Sure.
On it said that in the year 19, it said 483 credit hours were taken by 9 students. Is that year 19 to 20, like currently? I mean, the last year that we had it, or what's the current enrollment of that?
Currently, this academic year, we have 6 students enrolled. So that is the previous year. We had 9.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other questions or discussion about the auto collision program before we put it to a vote?
Yes, someone was going to bring information regarding what the college could anticipate as savings by discontinuing this project by this meeting.
Yes, and
Julie, I emailed that information to you. I showed you the expenditures and the revenues for that program, and I also emailed the copy of the program inventory to you. So you should have that information.
No, I don't.
I believe I emailed it with the board overview when I sent my board overview to you over the weekend.
Just give me a rundown. What are we saving? What are we saving? What's our expected savings?
let me pull that budget amount up, Dr. Kroll, because I don't have it here in front of me.
If I remember right, Lori, it was about, was it about $70,000?
Yes, it is. They budget for expenditures, it was about $90,000. And then, of course, we lose revenues from the enrollments, but those were pretty minimal, so. Dr. Hall, I didn't have a copy of what you sent to the board with your overview.
So would you say another 20 or 10,000?
This is Forrest. I'm looking at the budget in the spreadsheet that Dr. Kroll emailed, and it was about 72,000 in personnel expense, about 22,000 in non-personnel, for a total of 94. And we're using about 39,000 in tuition revenue. So the net positive, if I'm doing this right, would be about $50,000.
Correct.
Anybody have any other questions before we move on to a vote? Any discussion?
Is there going to be a teacher that loses their job?
Yes, we've already, that's the non-renewal in one of your action items.
Okay.
So, Mr. President, I move that we.
I had another question.
I move that we remove the auto collision program from the college's offerings.
If there's a question.
That can be done after the second.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Was there a question pending for discussion before we move to vote? I didn't catch it. No? Okay, so do we have a?
Yes.
Yes, I had a question.
Sure.
What will we do with the equipment, or will we auction it off?
It depends upon the funding source that it was purchased from. If it was purchased from Carl Perkins funding, then we have to follow the rules of the federal government and offer that equipment to another college that has the program. If there's not another college in the state that wants that equipment, then we have to look at other federal entities that may be interested. If we don't have anybody else that we can transfer those to, then we are allowed to dispose of the property. We don't really have an auction anymore. We do some online auctions and that kind of thing. And it just depends on the value of the property. And then it just comes back into the general fund. And I believe that Mel Whiteside has put together.
Do you have a college in mind?
There are a couple of colleges. There's Northwest Technical College in Beloit that has a program. So we'll reach out to the ones across the state that have this. Some of the equipment may be able to be used in our auto tech program, but like a paint booth, that's really specific to auto collision. Some of the equipment we have is very old. It's very dated. It's probably not worth a huge amount.
I don't know what the trash policy is as far as if you don't have a placement for it, how much you're allowed to just dump or destroy.
We will follow the rules that are outlined either by the state, as there is some state requirements.
Or just
$25
or less, $50 or less, $1,000. Does anyone know?
Well, if it's less than $500, it probably isn't even on an inventory. There's an inventory amount. So you really have to go a piece of equipment by piece of equipment, and you have to look at who paid for it, how it was funded, how old it is, and take it out for different entities to have a chance at it. So there might be small pieces of equipment we can get rid of because they're not really worth too much. But then like the paint booth and different things that are larger, we have to follow the funding source and go through those rules.
Okay, well, thank you for that insight. I appreciate it. That was sort of a question that I had about disposal, but it's really not germane to the topic for action. There's been further discussion and there has been some comment made. So I would ask that we renew the vote once again. Do I have a motion?
Okay, never mind.
Do I have a motion?
Collision program at the end of the current fiscal year.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, would you please do roll call vote? Laura?
Sure. Trustee Good?
Yes.
Trustee Law?
Yes.
Trustee Lechtenberg?
Yes.
Trustee Rhodes?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
I'm gonna vote no.
Trustee Winslow?
I will also vote no.
Okay.
Okay,
So it's
that being
4
the,
yeses and 2 noes.
okay, the majority carries, therefore we will discontinue the program. Moving on to the next action is approval of resolution of non-renew contract. See who we have for that.
So this is in line with the non-renewal of the program. It
Right.
refers to the faculty member who has been over that program, non-renewing his contract for the upcoming academic year.
Do we have any further discussion or questions about that?
Yes, I have a question. My question is, do we have a place for that individual already?
We did not have a qualified position for him that matched his qualifications.
Or does he just go out the door?
I understand he has taken another position elsewhere.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other further discussion? There being none, do I have a motion to approve the resolution to non-renewal of contract of this gentleman?
I so move we approve the resolution 2007.
I have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? There being none, would you please do roll call vote?
Trustee Good,
Yes.
Trustee Law,
Yes.
Trustee Lechtenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Rhodes,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Winslow,
Sorry, I didn't hear the vote on that one.
Yes.
He was muted.
thank you. That's 6 yes.
Okay, motion carries. The resolution's approved. Moving on to the next board action item, approval of cell phone policy revision. Shelley?
Yes, thank you. Bring before you a policy that's been in effect at the college for many years, and it is one that offers cell phone stipends to individuals in positions that may have to take calls for the college. And so we have been offsetting the cost of their personal cell phone bill as an incentive for them to do so. And we have looked at that annual cost, and part of the reasoning of the original reason we set that up is that many people, when you had a cell phone agreement, you had to pay for calls or texts over a certain amount. And we felt that that was incumbent upon us to offer that an offset to them for those costs. That currently isn't the normal for cell phone companies and providers to charge text or by call. And it's generally all inclusive included in the price. And we felt like that was not as big of a concern. The amount annually that we spend on these cell phone stipends is about $30,000 annually. And as we had looked at areas for cost reductions, this was one of those we felt would be appropriate. So we're asking for the change in the cell phone policy, basically as stated and shown with the strike outs that are in the topic for action. There are some cell phones that are provided by the college and paid for by the college to some of our public safety, for example. And I think there are residents assistants in the dorms. Those will continue. But the ones that we pay a stipend for the use of their personal cell phones are the ones that we are wanting to discontinue. So we're asking the board if they would take action to change the cell phone policy to remove the continuance of cell phone stipends to individuals for using their cell phones at work to perform work.
I have a question. It looks really good on paper, and I know it looks like you're trying to save money, but I just never seem to have enough information, and probably you're just not used to providing this level that I'm new on the board. So my question is, what personnel are we talking about? And I mean, I understand the dorms, I understand the safety officers, okay? But how long have we had this policy in effect? Do you remember?
The last revision on it, I believe, was in 2012, but I think it was here before that as well. I don't have the original implementation.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. And it used to be that, you know, we all got charged for minutes and per text and all that.
Right.
And
Exactly.
I just don't see it. I don't see a need to have it at all. But You know, I guess it's considered a benefit and it probably should be negotiated as such instead of just, because I understand I was responsible for making sure that all of the cell phones and so forth was paid for at different corporations that I work for, and I negotiated for them because we always went with one company for all. But that again was back in the day when each text was an amount of money, each piece of data was an amount of money. Each time we made a call, it was a cost. It was much more, it's much more different now. So I'm
sorry, did you have a question for me? I might have missed that.
asking why are we even continuing that?
Well, that's what we're trying to do, is discontinue it. So we're asking for the board's
Why are
approval.
not we just getting rid of that policy? Why are we not just not?
We're asking for board approval to discontinue that in our policy. That's what we're asking. That's what this topic for action is asking, for the board to allow us to change
So there won't
the
be
policy.
there won't be anyone that has it.
There will be some that are provided that we own the cell phone or a pager.
But there won't be any more stipends.
But there will not be any more stipends
That's what
paid
we're
to
addressing.
individuals.
And I guess that's a great thing, but it's only $30,000 and it's certainly a drop in the bucket. But again, you know, I don't really feel prepared to vote because I don't know what I'm voting for. I'm voting for a reduction and I don't know who these people benefited before. If it was for, I don't know who they were for. I don't know who these were for.
Well, I can tell you if you'd like. I can give you some
why
specific.
isn't that in there? Why wouldn't that be part of it?
Well, it's not part of the policy to say who gets it and who doesn't.
Well, you would have so many per organization, wouldn't you?
There are, well, these are stipends. These are amounts that are put in people's paychecks, not actual phones themselves.
Okay.
They're using their personal phone, just like I do. I check my email every day on my phone, or I get a call from Kim. I'm using my own cell phone. I don't get a stipend for that, but there are some people that do because they use their phone for work, to take calls. And a lot of those are like in IT, for example, in the IS area. So we have like a director who is over the service center. So he is mobile and is around the facility all the time, not sitting behind a desk. So his phone then is his connection to all his people. So that's an example. So there's a lot of them in IS. There's a couple of them that are in student services that are on the road a little bit. And so
okay,
they have.
I would go ahead and vote for this, but at the next meeting, I would really like to know, you don't have to tell me the individuals. Maybe I would like to know there are 10 funded.
There are 38, Julie. 38 people who get a stipend, yes.
Okay, forget the stipend, you're gonna get rid of it. Next time, we'll go ahead and get rid of the stipends, but next meeting, could I have how many cell phones we're providing and for what organization? I don't need names, I just need things like IT, there's 24, safety, there's 14, things like that. That's all I want to know. I just want to know for my own knowledge.
So, okay, so you want to know about the ones that we're actually providing the hardware and paying for?
Everything, yes. Yeah, I'm with you on getting rid of this. But at the same time, that's information I'd like to at the next meeting, if I could.
Gotcha.
Could I make a motion that we support the proposed discontinuation of the cell phone policy?
I'll second that.
Administration.
We have a first, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Or just a clarification, is the motion to approve the policy as revised or to remove the policy? I think I misunderstood what Doug was meaning.
As presented, the revised as presented.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, are you ready for me to do the roll call vote?
I think he needs to get his daughter in there to fix his computer.
Yeah.
He locked up, didn't he?
We all kind of look like the Brady Bunch on here, and we've all touched our faces about 5,000 times.
Correct.
Tim, since we lost Jim,
I'm sorry. I for some reason it clicks out and then it connects me back in. It's obviously my internet connection. I may just have to do this at work. I don't know why. I've got the fastest system.
Hopefully we never have to do it again. But anyway.
Yeah, that would be really, really nice because it's really hard to understand people. You just break up and it's just crazy. So did you call a roll call? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Trustee Good,
Yes.
Trustee Law,
Yes.
Trustee Lechtenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Rhodes,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes. Doing both.
Trustee Winslow.
Yes.
Okay, so it's unanimous.
Okay, so motion carries. We've approved the proposed discontinuation of the cell phone monthly stipend provision as discussed and presented. Next item is the approval of the emotional support animal policy. Who's going to talk to us about that?
That would be me. And Laura, if you want to pull that up. The college is required to have, we have an emotional support animal policy, and we also have a service animal policy. The emotional support animal policy is to basically support students that have documented need to have an emotional support animal within the residence halls. We do not allow for pets to be on campus or pets to be in the dorms. But if it's a documented emotional support animal and that's been approved by our Disability Services Office and our Director of Residence Life, then that student is able to have an emotional support animal in the residence halls. Again, there's a difference between emotional support animals and service animals. Service animals are specifically identified by the Americans with Disabilities Act. Used to be dogs and small horses or miniature horses. The miniature horses have been removed. So now it's just dogs that are specifically trained to provide a service as an accommodation for students with disabilities or employees with disabilities. And we also have in that policy the ability for a service animal in training to also be included within that. But we're just asking the board to approve both of these policies to move forward.
If we are.
Excuse me?
Already have them, why are we reapproving them?
To take the horse off.
We've revised the policy to be in compliance.
Why would we be reaffirming?
We're revising the policy to include both taking the horses off and to include the emotional support animals that hasn't been here prior. Isn't that correct, Teresa?
Actually, the horses are still in the policy, but they're not utilized. We expect that to be removed. We did not have an emotional support animal policy in place. It is now an issue within higher education with the amount of students that we have with mental health disabilities, that there's an increase in requests for emotional support animals. We did go under the Fair Housing Act, but we felt we needed to publish a policy as such for emotional support animals. Service animals, we did have a policy for, but the reason we're put this back in is to show the distinguishing between emotional support animals compared to service animals and the different laws that govern each.
Okay, we have any further questions or discussion about the policy and what exactly we're being asked to do? If not, do I have a motion to go ahead and approve the emotional support animal policies as modified.
Yes, that would be my question.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further
I
discussion?
have some questions. Okay. Discuss. Yes, I would like to discuss this. I have an emotional support animal. I know people that have emotional support animals. Most of them that I know are tied to PTSD. And I guess I'm wondering, where is it that we have the animal types? And also, I have horrible allergies in my grandchildren. So I'm wondering, how do we protect other people that have extreme allergies to animals from any kind of abuse? Is there a board that they have to go to nationally, and the pet has to be approved through a certain foundation and then through the college, or what do they have to do to qualify? I'd like to know if you just give it to them. Or...
No, Ms. Winslow, we have a procedure in place. The student has to provide documentation of their disability. With regards to emotional support animals, those are only governed under the Fair Housing Act. So that's our residence halls. So that's why we have the procedure in place. We have to get information from the professional that is treating that student that they actually need the emotional support animal. At that point, then we also, with regards to students that may be a potential roommate or such, are able to look at that to see if there are any allergies. Then we can move the student and the animal to a different location or the other roommate. But we have procedures in place for that.
Thank you.
Yes.
With that additional information and the motions as pending, do you have any further discussion that needs to be made on this topic before we move forward?
Nope, I'm good now.
Would you please do a roll call vote, Laura?
Sure thing. Trustee Good,
Yes.
trustee Law,
Yes.
trustee Lechtenberg,
Yes.
trustee Rhodes,
Yes.
trustee Smith,
No.
trustee Winslow.
I have to vote no for the reasons I already stated.
So it's 4 yay and 2 no.
Okay, motion carries. The policy modification approved. Move on to the next item, which is the acceptance of the retirement of Tanya Kirshner, biology professor. Shelley?
We have several retirees, retirements coming up, and I'd like to ask Lori Winningham to say a few words about each, because of them are faculty members.
So the first one in your board book is Tanya Kirshner. Tanya has been a biology instructor for most of her career here at Butler. She initially was a coach and began teaching biology many years ago. She is well liked by her students. I personally had the opportunity to supervise her for 20 years and when I served as dean. And Tanya is one of those instructors that sets the bar high, is there to help her students grow and helps them achieve their goals. But she's pretty no nonsense. And most students always know that as they go into her classes. The next person in the board book is Liz McNown. I think she may have a different first name, but I always know her as Liz. Liz right now has been the one that oversees all of our simulation labs in the nursing program. She's been with us 9 years, and we are going to miss her because we utilize those simulations a lot in the nursing. It's been great to have that lab and her oversight as she's developed the different learning scenarios that the students have had to do with the simulations that they do. We have one, I keep wanting to say dummy, but they're not dummies. They're mannequins, so to speak. But one, for example, has given birth over 100 times in the last year. She creates all those different learning activities, and she'll just be the whole team is going to miss her because she works with all 4 semesters of nursing students. The next in the board book is Karen Wright, and Karen works in our business education area, and she's been with the college about 14 years, and most recently she served as the lead in that particular department. And so we will miss her. She's one of those faculty members that's very kind, very gentle, and has helped all of her students be successful. I don't have the board book here in front of me, so I think the next few ones in the board book are actually on the student services side. So I don't know if Bill was going to talk about Mary Spoon.
Yeah,
Lori?
Mary has been with me since I think 2001. If you've ever been to my office, you know she loves cats. And she'd always ask me, she goes, "We got a new cat in the office." And I said, "How the heck would I know? There's so many of them in here with stuffed and ceramic and whatever." Mary's been a great service to me during my time here. She's been very pleasant working with external organizations that have their camps or their meetings or events on campus. She has helped coordinate all of that with facilities and with the food service. She's also been responsible for helping me track scholarships over the past 20 some odd years. So she's been a loyal Butler supporter. She's had stuff from back when it was El Dorado Junior College displayed in our office. She's now taken those down, but she's loved this place. She's been a great support to me, and the college is sincerely going to miss her. So I wish her the best of luck in her retirement.
You gonna talk about yourself, Bill?
No, I probably won't do that.
How about if I do that? We'll and then Lori or Kim in as well. But Bill's sort of like Mr. Butler. He's been with Butler 28 years. Has an outstanding career in higher ed. Your institutions at Southwestern, at KU Med. But Bill, I didn't know very many people when I came to Butler, but I knew a little bit about Bill from being involved at the state level. But Bill knows everybody, and everybody knows him. He is passionate about the work that he does. Continually advocates for students and works so hard to solve their issues and support them and help them. Every month when we have Employee Connect with our new employees and we get to have lunch, Lori and Bill and I join them for lunch. Bill always talks every month about how his personal life and his Butler life blend together. And there's not a real defining line because he's but most of your kids, except for 2, I think, right, Bill, have gone through Butler, and
just one.
Okay. And he talks about how essentially those kids have been raised at Butler through Butler activities and all the work that he does. And Lori and I got to the point where we would start to time him every month because it would take usually about a minute 26 seconds before he would say something like, "I've never worked a day in my life at Butler," but that's because he loves the work that he does. And I can tell you that he's just so respected, not only here, but across the state. And there's going to be a pretty big hole when he finishes up at the end of the month. But I truly can say to you with everything that I know that he's the heart and soul of Butler and represents our timeless institutional values of quality, integrity, caring, and service every single day that he comes. And he maybe is going to go to work for ACT for a while, but he's going to be here and he's going to be back on campus, and we know that we're going to see him a lot. So I don't know, Lori, if you have a few more things to say too. You've worked with him a lot longer than I have, but he's been a great colleague and an even better friend.
Yeah, he's going to be greatly missed. I love to come to work in different times, hear a Billism that he'll throw out there, and there's dozens of them. I think his family wrote a book about him. So Bill, it's been great working with you, and I wish you the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, I'm going to see if we can batch processes, no disrespect to all these fine folks. And Bill, since you're on the horn here, I'm just going to ask the general question. Does anyone have an objection to retirement of any of these fine people? There being none, I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion to accept the retirement of Tanya, Liz, Karen, Mary, and Bill.
I so move with lots of regret.
Second.
Yeah. All right. I take it no one has any questions or discussion, and we can just go ahead and move on. Would you please take a roll vote collectively for all of those, please, Laura?
Yes. Trustee Good,
Yes.
Trustee Law,
Yes.
Trustee Lichtenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Rhodes,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Winslow,
Yes.
okay, that's unanimous.
Okay, there being unanimous vote as to all of those individuals, their acceptance for retirement is approved. Moving on to the consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I
would
move
so
to
moved.
approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Being it's part of the consent agenda, I don't think there needs to be any further discussion on it unless somebody feels that's necessary. So let's go ahead and take a roll call vote, please, Laura.
Good,
Yes.
Trustee Law,
Yes.
Trustee Lichtenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Rhodes,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Winslow,
Yes.
it's unanimous.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. The consent agenda is approved as stated. Kim, is there anything in the supplemental information that you want to cover?
No, not specifically that needs to be pointed out. I don't think you can look through it. We will get those dates to you for the virtual commencement and nursing ceremonies, and we get that sent to you. So.
Okay, at this time, we need to move into executive session. Do I have a motion to move into executive session not to exceed 75 minutes for consultation with legal counsel, discussion of unelected personnel with no action to follow?
Motion.
moved.
A second? I'm sorry, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please, to move into executive session.
Good,
Yes.
Trustee Law,
Yes.
Trustee Lichtenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Rhodes,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Winslow,
Yes. I'm warning you though, I'm down to 13% in my phone.
Okay, well, let's
Hopefully
go
we can
ahead and
hurry.
move into executive session, and we doing something different how that works. I gotta get my IT daughter.
No, Laura's gonna move us
no,
from
you're
this
fine.
room.
Oh, I just sit here, nice.
Yeah.
All you have to do is, all you have to do is accept. There's gonna be a thing that pops up on your window that says go to the breakout room. Just click join, and then you'll be over there. And when you're done, Dr. K can just send me a text, and I'll take you out.
Okay.
And hey, Laura, I just sent Ray a text to let him know that we're going in too. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Bill, do you need me to put you back in the breakout room? So I assigned you to the room. Did you get a message?
think she has to let us back in.
Actually, I think it's here.
What's that?
I think everyone is back.
Are we all back? Slick.
Everybody here?
Looks like it.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I
Second,
would move to adjourn.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Good,
Yes.
Trustee Law,
Yes.
Trustee Lechtenberg,
Yes.
Trustee Rhodes,
yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Winslow. Trustee Winslow, I believe you're still muted.
Turn me back on, I guess.
Do you,
Mine says I'm not muted.
okay, so what is your vote?
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Okay, motion carries. We are adjourned. I understand we're going to have a board work session.
Just a quick one. We want to talk a little bit about some of the non-personnel things. I asked Kent to just kind of quickly share on the screen the update of the, unless you have in front of you, the March 10th update that we provided on the current year's budget and where we are for FY21 at that time in March. And then I'll tell you a little bit about some of the things that were
I'm so done.
on the non-personnel side. Do I have Kent? There you are.
Yeah, let me get that. I wasn't quite prepared, I guess.
Oh, sorry.
Let's see, update. Okay, getting there. So can I share this screen now?
You should be able to, Kent.
Okay. So this is the this was the update for the current year budget that we're in now. And so we were expecting to end up with about 6.5 million in unencumbered cash. We don't quite know where that's going to end up. We have both the good and bad as far as where that's going to end up. We think our unencumbered cash will be, or our unspent budget, excuse me, which we had put in at 2%, will be at least that much. There's a lot of areas where we're not spending money, so it'll probably be a little higher, in my opinion. However, we're also have some places where we're losing money. We've kind of reported that our students, student collectibles are up about $400,000. We budgeted for about 14,000 credit hours or more for summer, and we're only right now we're at a little over 10,000, so we expect to be down some in enrollment. You know, we didn't get any Educare revenues from March, from the time we shut down operations. We're still paying most of those people. So there's several areas where it's going to probably be to our detriment as far as our unencumbered cash. So we're just going to try and monitor that closely for the next month, but that's one of the things that we're considering as we look at the budget. Any questions about where we're at this year? So for next year, we were looking at, when we did this in March, we were still looking at our revenues, or excuse me, our expenditures being about $600,000 more than our budgeted revenues for next year. Obviously, we're trying to make $3.5 million of cuts in that. But there's, Dr. Kroll mentioned most of these factors, but we're looking at a $2 million probable reduction in for delinquencies in tax collections next year. They're telling us to expect 15%. We think state aid is somewhat in jeopardy, and we're talking about our enrollment.
Well, we lost Kent there for a second. Talking about the enrollment potentially that feeds into that as well. And so again, lots of factors that we're still waiting to see how they kind of shake out and sort out that will impact the final amount that we have to try and manage. Kent, are you back on yet at all? May not be. So on top of, some of those things that Kent was showing and trying to work towards finalizing next year's budget, on the non-personnel side, as we look at expenditures across the college, we have facilities projects that we can put on hold. We have, for instance, lab equipment that we don't have to fund going forward. We have some program budgets on the non-personnel side that we can make some changes to. We had intended to try to do an HVAC replacement in the 300 building and the art building, but because of the shutdown due to COVID, that's a project now that we can't get completed by the time classes start in the fall. So there would be a savings on the facilities project side of those dollars. We can cut travel to a certain extent. And so on the non-personnel side, we've identified again through a lot of the work that we've done, although not everything's prioritized yet, but we've identified about $1.1 million reductions on the non-personnel side. IT right now is reviewing all of their contracts and contacting all of the vendors to discuss license modifications. With the COVID thing, and even prior to that, it was a good opportunity to go back through and work to renegotiate those, and they're having some luck doing that. We have the ability sometimes to consolidate licenses and change vendors and things like that to save some dollars, and also moving to a centralized purchasing process that'll save us some money. But again, on the non-personnel side right now, we've identified an additional just over $1 million in savings that we can potentially look at. So it's really a comprehensive look at the budget, and again, looking at everything that we can with that target of at least $3.5 million in mind that we're working towards. I don't know if Kent's back on yet or not. I don't see him yet. What questions can I answer for you about these kinds of things, if you've got them?
How are we able to use the CARES Act federal dollars to shore up the budget?
You know, again, on the institutional side, it's still a little bit nebulous, I guess maybe is the right word. We know that we can use, we had about 400,000, I think $450,000 in refunds for residence hall students. We know that the funding can be applied to that. Part of the thing that's difficult right now is the wording and interpretation of the wording, and whether it can only be applied to expenditures right now, or if it carries over into summer and carries over into fall. And so they're trying to get a lot of clarification on that. But we have some, if we can include, if we have a loss in enrollment during the summer, we could potentially recoup those losses. We could potentially recoup any, like if there were any technology upgrades that we had to do, if there were overtime hours. So we can, you know, we can use the funding for that right now. There still are just lots of questions about what it covers and what it doesn't cover. We have to report, all the community colleges are reporting on a regular basis. As those things kind of accumulate, we're reporting those to Heather Morgan at KACCT, so she can kind of keep a compiled list for all of the community colleges, and then she's sharing that with the regents so that they understand what the impact is to the community colleges, and you know what the impact. They're also tracking that information on the university level. But we don't know if we can, you know, if we'll be able to claim losses in enrollment for the fall. They're, you know, they're still trying to sort a lot of that out. So we received $3.8 million. Half of it, at least half of it, has to go to student support, and that's those guidelines are pretty clear cut. If we don't have enough of institutional loss for the institutional dollars, then we shift what's left over to student support. So we'll use all of that money. But right now, again, it's just clarifying what those final guidelines are for the institutional side. So it'll help, but that'll be, some of it will be current budget year. Again, if some of it carries over into summer or fall, then it would potentially fall into next year's budget as well. What other questions do you have?
I just had a couple to throw out there. I'm kind of the opinion the college was starting, if not starting to be, but in kind of a bad way before COVID happened. And now it's going to be a whole nother ball of wax. I'd like to see a zero-based budget for next year. All this baseline budgeting we keep, I mean, last year we're 50 million, so we're looking at next year for 51 million. There's no way in the world we can go off the same budget as last year. That wasn't, you know, we're losing students prior to this. I'd like to, I mean, we've got time. It'd be nice to do that. I'd also like to see, I know we're a big act on fact, but I'd like to see, you know, put everything on the table. What do the satellite schools bring in? What do sports bring in? We've got all the benefits to the teachers, and 65% of our budgets, you know, faculty and staff. I mean, we need to put everything on the table and talk about it.
And that's what we're doing. That's really what we're doing, Shelby. All the vice presidents and the budget directors, you know, zero-based budgeting is kind of out the window. It's like less than zero-based budgeting now, because everybody's looking at reductions in current budgets and stuff. And so that's
we can't really do a baseline of last year and add to that base though.
No, that's why we're going through the process that we're going through right now. And we're looking at.
I get it. I appreciate everything I've heard, but I also want to hear about sports and satellite schools and more. I just want to hear about everything.
We will bring refined.
Yeah, our footprint is gigantic for what we're bringing in tuition and fees is all I'm trying to say.
Okay. Who else has questions?
I think I'd like to echo some of Shelby's thoughts. You know, you keep saying a refined budget. I'd like to know what you started with and then what you ended up bringing to the board. I mean, that may seem like macromanagement to you, but it's not to myself. I understand that there's certain requirements that you have to go through these, but I'd really like to know, and I'd like to know by line item. And you can add in the 3.2 and subtract the such and that, and what we're not going to get in taxes and so forth and so on. But Shelby's right. We already had a problem coming in, and now we understand how we're going to handle it yet. I know you're trying, and I commend you for that. But again, I'm looking for what's really happening out there, and I don't think any of us really know. So I think we're going to have to be prepared for a lot of different scenarios. I don't want to
starting
refine.
point presented to us as part of the February meeting. Didn't we have a work session? Kent gave us a starting point budget.
Yeah, that is the starting point budget, and we're working from that starting point budget, and we're looking at $3.5 million in cuts. So, and that's not coming from just one area. I mean, so what we're going to bring to you potentially is a budget that's much reduced than what you saw in February and March. That's what we're working towards, because that's what we're being told to plan for. So that's what we're working towards right now. Other questions from folks? Again, we'll bring more information back to you.
I really had some other questions, but you know what, Kim, it's really hard to do these meetings this way. So I would hope that we are not going to have another meeting in this fashion. We can do the social distancing very easy. That's a huge building. We can do that very easily. So I would assume that we're not going to have another one like this, because I'm sitting out in my car with none of my notes, because
I'm hopeful, Julie, also that we can meet face-to-face next time. We're trying to follow carefully the guidelines that are in place.
Frankly, it takes a lot of video on my phone. I hear what you're saying, but I need more than what I'm getting from these meetings. And I understand you want me to send you emails, but you know, I know how long ago I asked for by facility outline of exactly what Shelby's asking for, and I still don't have that yet. So it's okay. We'll talk later. We can talk privately. You can give me a call on the phone, whatever you want to do, but I've got to have these numbers.
Other questions?
I'm going to interject just for a moment, because I think I sent an email out some time ago, but I still have concerns that, Julie, and I don't know if Shelby's having that problem, but Julie apparently is not getting some of the same information I am. I don't know if it's an internet issue or what. And she's also been pretty blunt about we're not giving her everything she needs. And if you've compiled some kind of a list, Kim, of what she's requested from you or anyone else, I'd like to kind of get to the bottom of it and see, was it sent? Did she have it? Because I mean, I don't want to pass blame on somebody where there isn't blame due. So I'd really kind of like to make sure that I understand that everybody's getting what they need. And I'm a little confused by what Julie says because of her questions, because a lot of the things she's talking about, I kind of feel like I've gotten that information. And maybe I'm just not quite getting what exactly she's asking for. So
on Shelby's end, Laura and I had a bunch of emails that never went through, and I think we got it finally figured out, but there were half a dozen or 10 that she never got. So that may have been some of my stuff that didn't make sense when I was talking about it and I thought it had gone through, but I think Laura and I have my stuff worked out.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure, because I have concerns that, you guys aren't getting what you need and what you want. And I mean, that's driving a lot of your questions. If you're not getting it, by golly, I want to see why you're not getting it, because some of the questions I'm hearing, obviously you're not getting some of this stuff. I don't mean that in a facetious way, like you don't get it. I mean, it's like you're not getting it. So I just want to rest assured that all trustees, not just you folks, are getting all the information that they need. So if there's been some list and things haven't been given, I'd like to know what those things are, because I'm just a little bit concerned that you know, who are we really getting things out, or is there just misunderstandings?
I
or
don't
what?
have a list, Jim. I don't have a list, so.
All right, that's all
As soon
right.
as I have some of those things in writing, you know, we're happy to give them. I've got, you know, I've got the out district, I'm happy to send. I've got a question still about some of the McConnell numbers that we're trying to dig through and see how the salaries are assigned to McConnell. Information is just close to being done. You know, so I'm happy if you know, trustees will send me their questions or an email of the things that they want, you know, we'll provide it. So.
Well, I certainly get everything that I've asked for, and that's what I'm curious of. If it's just, there's something that they're asking for that maybe we just are getting the wrong thing or we're not communicating well. I think it's important for everybody to have what they need, but I've never gotten something that I've asked you. And a lot of the things I'm hearing, I know we've talked about, so I'm just curious. I want to make sure everybody's getting what they need so that they can make informed decisions. And certainly to all you trustees, if you have any questions when you get the board book and you see what's on the agenda, for example, the issues with the safety animals or that, I mean, please ask questions, get whatever information you need before the meeting so we can move the meetings along, you know, expeditiously. And I'm not saying you can't ask questions. I'm just saying that if the more information that you need and get before the meeting, the better off we all are.
Any other questions? Kent, I had an email or a text message.
Kim, you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry about that. I'm talking to myself here. What I was saying was can't get back on. So he's not going to rejoin us. And unless we have, you know, other questions, we're probably in good shape for tonight. We'll continue to bring additional budget information forward in June as well. So anything else for folks right now?
Not for me, Kim. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Stay safe. Oh,
yep.
Okay, stay safe, everybody. Stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.